Hello everyone, welcome to this video tutorial. My name is Katyayani Rajendran and I will be discussing Kdump configuration on local dump target in this tutorial. In this session, we will cover what is Kdump, why is it needed, how does it work. We will also walk through a practical demo of configuring the Kdump on local dump target and testing the Kdump configuration. Let's start. What is Kdump? Kdump is a reliable crash dumping mechanism based on KZEC. This service allows you to save the contents of your system's memory for the post-crash analysis. Kdump requires two kernels, the current kernel, also called as a primary kernel, a crash kernel, also called as secondary kernel. Now, let's talk about why Kdump. The kernel dump, often called a VM core, provides a snapshot of system's memory at the time of crash. The snapshot or VM core can be analyzed to determine the root cause of the crash. Additionally, it helps in troubleshooting various ongoing issues such as soft lockups, hung tasks, slab memory corruptions, and out-of-memory errors. Let's check the flow diagram. Initially, the system's physical memory is loaded with the primary kernel and a portion of memory is reserved for the crash kernel. When a system panic or a syscircuit trigger occurs, the system boots into the preloaded crash kernel. Then the crash kernel saves the content of the primary kernel's memory into a file called a VM core. This is done using make dump file. Finally, the VM core file is saved to the designated target, which can be a local disk or a remote location via NFS or SSH. Let's check the basic requirements to configure the Kdump. You need the KZEC tool package, a crash kernel reservation, and a target device. In this tutorial, we will look into configuring the Kdump on local dump target. Kdump service behavior is managed by two main configuration files, /etc kdump.conf file. This is the primary configuration file for the Kdump service. The another file is /etc/sysconfig/kdump. This one is used to pass additional boot parameters to the capture kernel. Let's see the steps to configure the Kdump. First, you need to install the KZEC tools package and then need to reserve the memory for the crash kernel. If you are configuring the Kdump on RHEL 7 or 8 systems, you can add the crash kernel parameter using the grubby command. If you are configuring the Kdump on RHEL 9 systems, you can add the auto_reset_crash kernel space yes line in the /etc kdump.conf file and then save it. Then execute the kdump_ctl reset-crash kernel space -- kernel equal to all command to update the crash kernel parameter. And then reboot the system for the changes to take the effect. You can verify the memory has been reserved for the crash kernel in the /proc iomem file. Let's configure the dump target location by editing vi/etc kdump.conf file. Here we set the path to /varcrash, specifying the core collector as make dump file. Here -l indicates about compression algorithm of the core dump. The message level is used to specify the message type. Here it's set as 7, which means it prints the progress indicators, common messages and error messages. And -d dump level specify the types of unnecessary pages for the analysis. It's set as 31, which excludes 0 pages, private and non-private cache, user data and free pages. And set the default action to reboot to perform in case of dumping to the intended target fails. You can start the Kdump service using either one of the commands kdump_ctl start or systemctl start kdump.service. To enable the Kdump service, you can use systemctl enable kdump command. And to verifying the Kdump service status, you can use either one of the commands kdump_ctl status or systemctl status kdump.service. Let's quickly see the things in the demo now. In this example, I am taking RHEL 9 machine. First need to install KZEC tool package. Install KZEC tools. Now the KZEC tools package installed on the server. It's a RHEL 9 system, so we do the crash kernel reservation and set the dump target location both on the /etc kdump.conf file. If you are using RHEL 7 or 8 systems, you need to set the crash kernel parameter first and reboot the system to reserve the memory for the crash kernel. And then you have to set the target location for the kdump. Let's open the kdump.conf file. Here we can see auto reset crash kernel, path, core collector or the parameters were enabled by default. Now I am adding one more line, default, reboot and then save the file. Then run kdumpctl reset crash kernel space -- kernel equal to all. And then reboot the system for the changes to take the effect. Now the system is back online. Run grep crash /proc iomem command to verify the memory reserved for the crash kernel. Then run kdumpctl start command to start the kdump service. Here we can see kdump is already running. Then run systemctl enable kdump command to enable the kdump service. Let's check the kdump service status using kdumpctl status command. Here we can see kdump is operational and also we can see no VM core creation test is performed. Let's see how to test the kdump configuration. You can test the kdump configuration using the sysrq or NMI method. To enable the sysrq facility, you can use either one of the commands systemctl-w kernel.sysrq equal to 1 or echo 1 greater than symbol /proc sys kernel sysrq. To trigger the crash, you can use echo c greater than symbol /proc /sysrq trigger or alt plus print screen plus c keyboard combination. It will panic the system, then capture and save the VM core as defined in the kdump configuration file. The another method is using the NMI button. You need to enable the below NMI sysctl parameters to generate a VM core when the NMI button is pushed. Let's see the things in the demo now. Here I am testing the kdump configuration using the sysrq method. Run echo 1 greater than symbol /proc sys kernel /sysrq. Then run echo c greater than symbol /proc sysrq trigger. It will panic the kernel and save the VM core file in the defined target location. Now the system is back online. Do ll/var crash. Here we can see one directory is created under /var crash. Let's do ll/var crash 127. Here we can see the VM core file is successfully generated. If you are doing the kdump configuration on your environment, it is strongly recommended to test the kdump configuration on each system during planned maintenance to ensure VM core file is successfully generated. You can enable the vm.panic_on_om parameter to capture the VM core in case of out-of-memory situations. Like that, you can enable the kernel.softlockup panic and kernel.hungtask panic to generate the VM core file at the time of softlockup messages and block task messages were reported on the server. Enabling this parameter by default is not recommended. This option should only be used when necessary to troubleshoot a specific issue. We are providing the kdump helper lab facility to configure the kdump on your system. This tool simplifies the process by generating a script to configure the kdump based on your input. In the prerequisites, you can refer to the links given on this first page of the lab and enable the button to proceed. In the Rahel version, you have to select the Rahel version of your system. In the dump target, you have to select the target location, whether it is local or remote location. And in the memory filtering, you have to select what kind of data you want to save in the VM core. In the operation on dumping failure, you can select one of the options to perform when the VM core fails to generate. In the crash server on, you can select the option to enable the specific panic parameters to generate a VM core at the time of soft lockup and out of memory occurrence. In the memory usage, you can select either one of the options to reserve the memory for the crash kernel. In the Ansible information, if you want to generate the Ansible playbook, you can enable this button to generate the Ansible script. Review the summary and click the generate button to create the script files. In this example, it creates 3 script files. You can use either one of the script files to configure the Kdump. It also tells you how to use the script files on your machine. Thank you for watching this tutorial.